Now, moonlit skies worry a lot of people because even though you've only got clouds and a light spot like the sun, except this time it's the moon, because the rest of the sky is so dark, they very often overplay the situation and make everything too dark to the point that it becomes really densely muddy and black and just not like a moonlit sky at all. So we'll look at one or two little tips here that's going to prevent you from making that sort of mistake when you paint a moonlit sky, and as we progress through it I'll show you how easy it is to create those silver edges that really define the moon and the way it sits in amongst clouds that are passing in front of it and behind it. Now, in these two photographs you can see that in this picture we've got a phthalo, a very dark turquoise blue sky, which phthalo blue is ideal for, and that's very much the colour we're going to use in this canvas that I've already prepared. In this sky you can see that it's a much more of an ultramarine blue in the overall colour, so there's no right or wrong blue that you can use to create a nighttime sky. So what we're going to do is use the basis of some of the clouds in this picture, but we're also going to pick up the fact that the clouds partially obscure the moon, as in this one, and as I've already said, the blue we're going to use in the background is this lovely rich phthalo blue. Now, the first thing we're going to do is to paint very roughly the outline of the clouds. Okay, we're going to look at the painting the cloud colour itself, and as you can see I'm mixing the phthalo blue, a little tiny touch of white just to lighten it, and also some raw umber. Okay, that's fine, and I'm going to start off with, there's a cloud up here. You can see this is, I bet you never thought you'd ever be painting turquoise blue clouds. I'm just moving around to the point where I'm going to paint in the moon in a second, but I just want to get these basic cloud outlines in. Incidentally, if I'd have put on just the phthalo blue on its own, it would have been far too vibrant and bright, so that brown, the raw umber that we've added, has just helped to tone it down a little bit. Now I'm just scrubbing. All I'm doing is scrubbing to get, frankly, to get the paint off the brush, but it also just helps to very roughly blend in that paint that we've already put on. Just lighten that off slightly just here and there, because we do want some lighter areas in the clouds. Even though they're not right on the edge of the halo, it's useful to give them form and a three-dimensional effect, but still pretty restrained in the overall picture. See, there's nothing complicated to this. You can see that I'm just using the number 5 filbert brush and I'm just gently scrubbing the paint round. Right, let's now go into putting the moon. Now for that I'm going to use the same colour as I've used for the clouds, but I'm obviously going to add a lot more white, but it's not pure white, not yet, not yet. We'll highlight the moon right at the end to give it a little bit of vibrancy. And I'm taking some off with the paper towel. This pale blue colour will give us a nice bright moon. I'm just going to paint that in a circle. You see I'm using the number 1 round brush. Right, I'm just going to leave that to dry in for a second or two, because I just want to have that faded at the edges very slightly. I don't want it as an absolute sharp moon. I just want a little bit of a halo around it. Taking most of the paint off. Okay, I've put a little bit of blue round it now and a little bit of gel. You can see that it's pretty well dried in already. That's better. That gel is just sufficient to just take the edge off. It doesn't matter that I'm lifting some of the paint out of the moon, because when we come to put a highlight in, that's going to be sorted out then. Okay, we'll leave that to dry properly now. I'm just going to add some more clouds like this across bits and pieces of the rest of the sky over here and just up towards the moon. Right, now I've scrubbed in using the 1-inch brush and the 1/2-inch flat brush all around, all over the picture here and there. I've used a variety of tones. You can see there's a little bit more raw umber in that colour there, a little bit more white in this colour here, but you can see that it's given a subtle impression of dark and light clouds not in the light, overlaying on top of each other, but just catching the merest amount of the minimal amount of light from the moon. Now what we're going to do is look at these clouds that are closest to the moon and paint the highlights. But before we do that, what I just want to do is to just drift a cloud across or partially across the moon, just to give that nice depth to the picture. It pushes the moon in its place way up in the sky and obviously way behind the clouds. So I'm going to use the number 2 nylon filbert for this, and you can see I'm just picking up, well, basically it's whatever colour. You can see there's a whole variety of mixes that I was describing earlier. I'm just picking that up very lightly, and I'm just going to bring it gently in a fairly bobbly fashion across the moon like that. You can see the way that's picking up slightly like that. And that's going to be quite bright in a minute, so I just want to get the dark areas sorted. But the cloud is obviously pretty translucent, so we're going to get that a lot lighter in a moment, so don't worry about that, we'll sort that out. We're just getting the shape right at the moment. Now, having put the cloud across the moon, the next thing we're going to do is do the dull outline of the edges of the cloud, reflecting the light from the moon. And then when I've done that, I'm going to finish off with the rigger with just some highlights here and there. And for this, I'm using the number 2 nylon filbert, taking off much of the paint. We don't want too much to start with, and so what we're going to do, you can see the way we're just stabbing on round the edges. And this is a real issue for blending, because you've got to get rid of that hard edge on the inside of the cloud. You want a hard edge facing the moon, but you've got that hard edge on the inside of the cloud. And the way to do it, I find the simplest way, is just by using this brush, is just put the colour on and then right away just, you can see, just dragging it upwards and away like that. And you see already we've got quite an acceptable and convincing little edge to that cloud, even though there's a bit more to do, but you can see already how convincing that's starting to look. That moon is starting to shine out already. Okay, you can see that we've worked our way all over the clouds with this lighter colour and scuffing it back into this area here. I've used some slightly darker colour just to scrub it and blend it. Now what we're going to do is just take that across here. I wanted to do that particularly because that needs to be quite dark, but not so dark that it actually obscures the moon. There. Now that's the key there. Do you see where the cloud now drifts outside the actual shape of the moon itself? It's a very much of a mottled sort of effect, because the cloud blocks some light and the moon doesn't get all its light all the way through. Just take that harsh bit of blue out of it like that. That's it, like that. Okay, the final thing I'm going to do is come in with the rigger just to give some real silvery edges. It's very much a case of working, just stabbing in and dabbing like that, but you need immediately to blend that out slightly. I'm just using my finger, but if you want to, let's go back into, oh I know, we'll go into the number 1 round brush, because that's going to be small enough to get away with it like that. So we're putting on some gentle little real hard highlights, a little bit at a time, and then with a very much almost dry brush, again we're just stabbing in. It's sort of picking up paint, lifting some off, depositing some paint somewhere else, but it's just taking that severe edge. Okay, we've gone all around the moon now in about 10 minutes, which must be something of a record, but there you go. What I'm going to do now is just with the rigger, just add a little bit of genuine plain titanium white just on the underside of the moon, like that. Okay, you can see I've put the titanium white highlights on hit and miss using the texture of the canvas, and that's given us the final little thing that we wanted on this picture to really bring out the moon as the focal point in this lovely moonlit sky.